I made a lot of mistakes when I was trying to recover, and ultimately they caused me stress and they cost me a lot of recovery time. So here are the top 3 mistakes that I made, that you might be making, and that I see my clients making, and what you can do to fix them. All of our focus when we're trying to heal is on eradicating symptoms. And who could blame us? They're interfering with our life, they're causing us pain and discomfort, and why wouldn't we want them gone? Unfortunately, there is a dark side to focusing solely on symptoms. And that's because there's a fine line between being aware and being hypervigilant. And that really taps into fear of the symptoms getting worse, but ultimately fear of what could happen if we don't heal. The more we get the symptoms, the more anxious we get. The more anxious we get, the worse the symptoms get. And it really stops us trusting our bodies when we're in a state of symptom anxiety all the time. The most useful thing to do when I was going through the worst of my pain and fatigue was to actually use distraction techniques. And that was really to take my mind somewhere else, so I wasn't always focused on what was going on in my body. And I found particularly with the pain, and I used to have the most intense neural pain all over my back, which would go on for 3 months at a time. The less I focused on it, the less intense it felt. And it takes some practice, but what I found was the pain became more bearable over time. And sometimes it would just disappear altogether. The other thing with focusing solely on symptoms is that we miss the things that have improved. Sometimes some symptoms would be a lot more intense, but others wouldn't be. And by focusing just on the things that had got more intense, I missed the things that had actually dissipated and gone away. And so when we focus on what isn't changing rather than what is, that impacts our belief in our ability to heal, and it also impacts the hope that we have. And you really need these if you want to recover. In my journey, I tried to keep a symptom journal, and I used to find it a bit difficult because if nothing changed, I would get disappointed and start to beat myself up for the lack of progress. But when things did and they were worse, that would then send me into that Google desperation cycle. So I'm glad that I gave that up because it kept me focusing too much on my symptoms. So symptoms can be alarming, they can be upsetting, but it's important that we develop strategies to manage symptoms and to deal with the changes that come with them. And this will mean that those symptoms changes won't become a source of stress. If you want to know the steps that you can take to gain emotional mastery and start to get out of that fight, flight and freeze, I've put a free training together. The link is in the description. That's going to tell you what you need to do. A big mistake that I made and that I see others doing is really hitting that pause button on their life. Everything gets geared towards healing and the thinking that I can't live until I'm healed. And I'm sure you're thinking, Rachel, what are you talking about? It's difficult to live with a chronic illness, and I completely get that. But stopping your life and not doing anything that you enjoy really is a form of self-punishment. And it means that we miss out on the things that could be useful to us, but also puts us in a desperate state to recover quickly so that we can escape the prison that we've put ourselves in. And I've seen it time and time again where people find their life unacceptable. And that means that life becomes a needlessly miserable experience, but also one that's very stressful because we're always trying to escape the situation that we're in. Furthermore, we may become stuck in grief for the loss of the life we had, which again, if we don't move through it and we don't learn how to adapt, this can become another source of stress. I know I was stuck in grief for many years, and it was only when I got to a point that I was open to replacing these things with something else that I started to feel a bit more content with where I was at. And I'm not saying that you should just accept the illness, absolutely not. One of the things that you need to get better is really a stubbornness and a belief that you will recover. However, in the current moment, you need to make yourself comfortable. So look for things each day that you can bring in that will improve your experience. But they should be things that you enjoy and that they're easy for you to do. Just work with where you're at right in this moment, and you'll feel a huge shift in how you feel if you're able to do that. We need to live before we've healed, so that energetically we're moving towards something good rather than running away from something bad. If you've been sick for some time, it can be really easy to lose yourself and only see yourself as a sick person. So when I saw friends, all I talked about was the illness, which I imagine them off immensely. But by really making the illness a big part of who I wasn't leaving enough space for me to be someone without the illness. And so all of our thoughts and actions really need to be focused on moving through rather than staying put. You need to remember you're experiencing ill health, but it isn't who you are. The issue with these mistakes is they really increase the amount of stress that we experience. In this video, I really break down the 4 types of stress that we experience during chronic illness that really need our attention if we want to heal. You might want to go and watch that next. Thank you for watching. Bye.